This Will guide is going to focus on the normal and hard difficulties, as well as coming from a solo perspective. Will is a mechanically intensive fight, with a heavy emphasis on chip damage. Lifesteal, passive regeneration, and healing, and especially healing familiars, are going to be key in this fight. Healing familiars alone are going to drastically decrease the difficulty of Phase 2 Will, which for many people is going to be the most difficult phase. Let's first cover the commonality between all three phases. First up, the Moonlight Gauge. This is present in each of Will's three phases and is activated by pressing your NPC interact key. It regenerates passively over time, and that regeneration is interrupted for a brief period when you take damage. The regeneration is also slightly lower in hard mode. Next is the attacks that Will has in all three phases. First, the Spider Legs. These deal 20% HP damage and will never strike the same place twice. Dodge them simply by standing where they struck last. Next attack, the Watching Eyes. Each bullet does 10% damage and reduces your Moonlight Gauge slightly. These will spawn and fire projectiles in a 5-point pattern, starting pointing down. The next volley of projectiles will be in a pointing up pattern that is slightly skewed. Next, the little bluish purple homing balls. Upon reaching your character, will detonate on a small delay and deal 10% HP damage to you. These can be avoided by dashing through them, flash jumping through them, whatever mobility method you have, just get out of the way once their detonation is triggered. Nothing majorly threatening so far, just some basic attacks that you need to keep in mind and dodge when you can, but not make it your sole focus. There are more important mechanics. Will, in my opinion, is very much a fight of misdirection. He is going to throw a lot of attacks at you, and you need to decide what you can safely get hit by and what you actually need to be focusing on. Phase 1. The Moonlight Gauge in Phase 1 will serve the purpose of switching you from one dimension of the Will fight to the other. These two dimensions are signified by the different colors, which are corresponding to Will's health bars. You'll also notice Will has two smaller health bars under the main red one. The smaller health bars are the important ones in this phase. Each health bar must be damaged at an equal rate to actually deal damage to the red health bar. They're also split into 3. This is signifying tests that must be passed at each of these thresholds. More on tests shortly. Checks will be triggered at timed intervals, making sure you are damaging the red and purple health bars equally. Switching dimensions frequently and splitting up your damage between them makes this not an issue. Having higher damage means this will eventually not even be a thought anymore. Should you fail the check, he will heal the lowest health bar up to the highest. Checks are signified by the message at the top middle of your screen saying Will is trying to unlock his power, find your way to safety. You want to be in the dimension that has this symbol in it. If you don't currently see it, activate your Moonlight Gauge. After a few seconds, should you not be in the same dimension with that symbol, you die. If you succeed and you pass the health checks, now you are in the test. Phase 1 test is very simple. A dark eye spawns in the middle of your map. Attacking it will trigger meteors. Reddish purple meteors hurt, gold ones spawn a barrier on the middle. Get one single golden bubble, stand in the barrier that it spawns, and you have passed that test. Then Will briefly gets stunned. Will has 3 attacks here that will be shared with the other 2 phases of the fight, just they will look a little bit different, and in Phase 2 will even have different versions. All 3 attacks will deal 20% HP damage and will be referred to as a slash, a backhand, and a push attack. The backhand and the slash are functionally identical, just the slash has a little bit more range. Push attack, on the other hand, being the most dangerous of these 3 because it comes with a 5-second control reverse, which really is not something you want in a fight like this. Dodging this is a high priority. First attack, unique to Phase 1, is the Eye Wind. This attack deals 90% HP damage and is capable of dealing damage multiple times if you yearn for death and wish to run with it. Will touches his hand to his face and unleashes the attack forward. This can be dodged in numerous ways. You can teleport through it, jump over it, or blink over it. Use your Moonlight Gauge to switch to the opposite dimension. And most simply, just be standing behind him when he casts it. He will also do a couple of other things. Occasionally, he'll forcibly teleport you to the opposite dimension you're in. He will also frequently disappear and re-teleport, but this deals no damage, so just don't worry about it. During Phase 1, staying behind Will is capable of dodging almost everything he has that is threatening. Try to keep him near the center, as that makes dodging his attacks easier. Preferably try to save your bind and burst for the beginning of Phase 2. Granted, this is a personal preference of mine and not a requirement. Phase 2. This phase can be very overwhelming due to the fact that Will actually attacks you through the reflections in the floor. The spider leg attacks are also more significant here. The damage they deal may stay the same, but they now attack you from both above and below. Both deal damage to you. They are also an integral part of the Phase 2 test, which let's get into that after explaining one key mechanic of Phase 2. Phase 2's most defining characteristic is the fact that it completely blocks your healing. This blocks potions, paladin or bishop heals, passive recoveries, everything except familiars. 3 large healing familiars are capable of trivializing Phase 2. You can still be in danger, but it's just a lot easier. Should you have no familiars, well, the Moonlight Gauge is what is going to allow you to heal. Consume 30% of the Moonlight Gauge to remove the healing block for 7 seconds. During this time, you can heal as normal, skills, potions, whatever. You'll also notice Will has another segmented health bar, and yes, that is related to the test. Phase 2's test is a lot more difficult than Phase 1, but it is still simple when you know the patterns to look for. At 50 and 0.4%, Will trigger his Phase 2 tests. Once it is triggered, you will either need to dodge or be hit by spider legs in order to survive. Death is failure. Okay, so to make this as simple as I can, we are going to focus on the left side of the arena, focusing on landmarks in the background of the map. If the health bar reaching the thresholds isn't clear when the test is triggering, a message at the top center of your screen will appear. A cracked floor means get hit by the spider legs. No crack means dodge the spider legs. The landmarks in the background we'll be focusing on are this big crystal, the first pillar, the small crystal, and the second pillar. No crack can be dodged by the same method every single time. Small crystal, gap, second pillar. Then get back over to the left as quickly as you can because cracked floor has 2 patterns. First pillar, small crystal, and then gap. The second pattern starts at the big crystal, then just left of the small crystal, and then just right of the small crystal. Very small distance between those last 2. Succeed all 5 waves, and you've passed the test. As for attacks, Will still has the slash, the backhand, and the push. Except now, he has fake out versions of these. These are given away by the fact that the reflection is not following the animation of Will himself. So when he does this to dodge it, you want to be in front of real Will instead of behind him as usual. One of Will's most dangerous mechanics is his ability to summon these spider webs at the far left and the far right of the map. Dealing 90% damage in normal mode and 100% in hard mode, they are instant death nearly any time you get hit by them due to the high amount of chip damage. They are also exceptionally dangerous in combination with his push attack. He also gains an ability where he rushes towards you, which is basically his teleport, and deals 10% damage to you. Lastly, he has his spider summon. This spider runs towards you and can be jumped over or teleported through. It'll deal 20% damage should it touch you. The Moonlight Gauge in Phase 2 is far more significant than it is in Phase 1. Dodging attacks will be absolutely necessary to maintain a healthy charge for your Moonlight Gauge and ensure that you can appropriately heal when you need to. I suggested saving your bind and burst for the starting of Phase 2 because you start with 0 Moonlight Gauge. Binding him ensures that Will is going to stay still himself, meaning you only need to focus on dodging ambient attacks while you burst him down. With proper damage, this will also ensure that your burst will probably be coming back just in time for Phase 3. In this phase, your Moonlight Gauge is now the ability to get rid of spider webs. These spider webs are going to start around the edge of the screen and will slowly creep inward until they cover it entirely. Touching one of these spider webs is going to incur a 5-second skill lock. Activating your Moonlight Gauge is going to allow you to run into these without incurring a penalty and destroy up to 2 of them. This will be a constant thing you are doing throughout the course of Phase 3 while you're trying to DPS Will down. Luckily for us, Will stays perfectly stationary in this fight. It's actually quite easy mechanically. It's more of a DPS check with a soft enrage. The enrage being the entire screen being covered with cobwebs and you not being able to do anything without the resistance link skill's help or iframes. Unlike Phase 1 and Phase 2 of Will, there are no tests in Phase 3. However, there is a poison gas. As a solo player, this will not be something you need to worry about. In fact, it's helpful to you. Will inflicts you with this green debuff for 15 seconds. While inflicted, you deal bonus damage to Will. However, should you not be attacking Will for 7 seconds, you will die, but that's not hard to do. In a party, this debuff deals damage to the party members around you, so the inflicted player should stand away from the rest of the party. Should you die, it will be spread to somebody else, but as this is a solo guide mostly, we're gonna move on from that. Will himself gains 2 new threatening attacks in this phase, one-shotting the player in hard mode and dealing 90% in normal. Both of these attacks see Will transform into a giant spider. Both both with completely opposite ways to dodge them. One requires you to stand still, the other requires you to be moving. Simply put, yellow eyes stand still, white eyes move. When moving with white eyes, you need to be moving during the attack, not just when it starts. If the eye color isn't enough, the positioning of the attacks is completely different as well. Just like the previous two phases, the basic attacks are here as well: the slash, the stab, and the push. Push this time is capable of pushing you into spiderwebs, and that's not what you want. Staying behind Will is still the main way of dodging these attacks. However, now when you need to keep spiderwebs down, outrunning them is more of a viable option, as you can outrun those attacks as well as getting rid of cobwebs. Phase 3 can very much just be a DPS race. If you're confident enough in your damage, you can outrace the cobwebs and hope that you can kill Will before he fills the entire map with spiderwebs, making it nearly impossible to fight him properly. A max level resistance link skill will help a lot in phase 3, allowing you to just have 10 seconds of invincibility every time you resurrect. And if you come into this phase with 10 lives, that's a lot of wiggle room to deal damage to Will without worrying about the spiderwebs. However, it is wise to take advantage of opportunities and don't let your moonlight gauge overfill and clear cobwebs when you can. It's always best to learn the fight as properly as you can and not try to cheese it too much. But hey, a little bit of cheese now and then, it's okay. So good luck fighting Will. I hope you get him down. Let me know in the comments if this helped you out. So thank you to my patrons and my members. Thank you to you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.